He is shocking everyone as a brand new signing from the Boston Celtics is showing that he will have a more important role than maybe other people see. We talk about this player and what Joe Mazzulla has said and why he is going to be such a big piece for the Boston Celtics in the 2025-26 NBA season. Welcome into Celtics Digest, everybody. I'm Jace Andrews. I appreciate you tuning in to today's show. We've got a lot to talk about before that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's 100% free. And I know we've been a little bit off our game as of late, but with the Celtics season coming up here soon, we're going to be posting daily on Celtics Digest. So go down there, hit that subscribe button. I promise you will not regret it. Let's talk about the latest reports here with the Boston Celtics, as there has been a new article labeling a new Celtics addition that is already filling the Luke Kornet void. So the Boston Celtics from this year, or rather last year to this year, in some ways are going to be a little bit unrecognizable. Jaylen Brown is still there, Peyton Pritchard, obviously have Derrick White and Sam Hauser, but a lot of the key pieces, especially from the championship run, both around 2 years back now with Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porziņģis, it is a little bit different. But however, there's new names, and they're going to be trying to fill in the same spots as some of our older players that have left. Now, if you don't remember or don't know, Luke Kornet is now on the San Antonio Spurs, which I'd arguably say is somewhat of a bigger loss than maybe Al Horford in that light, but it's kind of an interesting situation for the Celtics, and we're going to talk about it here on today's show. We first talk about here the fan-sided article from Estados Unidos, who says, quote, despite lacking the talent they once had, the Celtics have demonstrated in just 3 preseason games that they'll be a competitive team with their new additions. Now, who exactly are their new additions? Well, to kind of name a couple, there's Anthony Simons. That's the main guy that's on the list in terms of new additions that will be key contributors. Chris Boucher, which seems like he's going to be the starting center. We'll talk about him. But there's some guys in the lower ranks that I think should be talked about, like quite honestly should be talked about. One of those names is Luka Garza. You might remember him from his Iowa days, in which he was one of, if not the best basketball player in college basketball. And so that's what we talk about here on the latest article and what Joe Mazzulla kind of is showing for Luka Garza. Quote, head coach Joe Mazzulla has already previewed his plans for offseason signing Luka Garza, as he's already showcased his ability to fill the void the team lost with the departure of Luke Kornet, end quote. Talking about the Boston Celtics, the center position has been one of controversy because throughout the offseason, it was a pivotal point that the Celtics made to say that Neemias Queta is going to be our center. The guy out of Utah State who's waited his time, he's going to be that guy at starting center. But I don't know if that's inherently true, especially after the first couple preseason games we've seen. First of all, I want to talk about the guy who has been playing a majority of the games at center and why I believe he will take that spot. That, of course, is going to be Chris Boucher, the $3 million player sitting out of Toronto. He's played in 3 games, 20 minutes in 2 of the 3 games. Funny enough, the 20-minute games were in the first 2 games, which makes me believe even more that he will become the starter heading into game 1. He had 11 points against Memphis and had 19 points against the Toronto Raptors back last Friday. They're also playing today, so it'll be an intriguing position. It is the last preseason game for the Boston Celtics, though, and the stipulation is that most of the quote-unquote what should be the starters will sit, so we don't know what will happen with Chris Boucher. But that's not the point of the story in some aspects. I just want to put that out there that he'll probably be the starting center. But Luke Kornet was not the starting center. At least he wasn't supposed to be, especially on the championship team. You had Kristaps Porziņģis, but he did have a very pivotal role in the team, and that's exactly where Luka Garza fits in. Quote, Kornet was crucial to the team's pick-and-roll game, finishing with the 29th highest pick-and-roll frequency at .186 and 3rd in pick-and-roll man points per possession with 1.33. So the pick-and-roll is a huge part of the Boston Celtics game, and a lot of times they use their backup center, which was at the time Luke Kornet, and even when he did become more of a starting role with the illness to Kristaps Porziņģis, he was still doing a lot of that pick-and-roll movement, and he did it really, really well, which is a portion of why they kept doing it. But it seems as though that Luka Garza is taking over that slot now. We can see here in the quote from the fan-sided article that Garza has been used similarly to Kornet in preseason play, being heavily involved in pick and rolls and providing the Celtics with points in the paint off rolls to the basket, end quote. So kind of taking a look here quickly at the stat sheet for him in the first 3 preseason games, you can kind of look through this and see the points, they're okay. 9, 7, 4, played in less minutes. excuse me, 10, 12, and 7. Read the wrong number there, but 10, 12, and 7 after playing in about 15 minutes per each of those games. Field goal percentage was much better in the most recent game at 66.7, but he's not the guy that's required to, basically take a lot of these shots. He also had 6 for 7 from the free throw line in the game against the Toronto Raptors. But again, he's going to have a lot of the defensive responsibilities, the rebounding responsibilities, and the assist responsibilities that we see in kind of moving the ball. Now, while the pick and roll hasn't been as effective, it has gone to somewhat, I would call it a hockey assist, where they've used the pick and roll, having, Luka Garza pass it to someone, and then you get a guy driving in who then passes it out and usually gets a shot. That's why you only see the 2 assists through the three games, but 10 rebounds in the first game, 6 and then 5. They're using him in the proper manner throughout these games, and I think we're going to see more and more of his growth, because at the end of the day, he is a very young player, a guy that I think has a lot of growth still to do in this sport and in this game. I mean, yeah, he's setting into his age 27 season, but last year only appeared in about 5.6 minutes per game, averaging 3.5 points, 1.4 rebounds, and not even an assist per game. But his field goal percentage was off the charts when he was on the court. This all to be said, it's going to be a situation where they're going to try and make Luka Garza the Luke Kornet doppelganger, quote unquote. That's what Joe Mazzulla has basically said. And so obviously it's a different situation because we know what Luke Kornet is capable of and what he was doing last year. But I'd argue that even in the minutes per game that he had being substantially more than Luka Garza, the points per game weren't outrageously more. The rebounds and assists weren't outrageously more. But one thing that strikes me as so similar to each other is the field goal percentage, because if we can see the field goal percentage for Luka Garza, definitely not the same as Luke Kornet, but still a very high number. The three-point percentage, I think, will 100% go down because I don't see Luka Garza taking a surplus amount of threes with the Boston Celtics. Joe Mazzulla has shown us time and time again that if he wants you to be that pick-and-roll type guy, that's what you're going to do. You're going to get down low. And obviously, through the first couple preseason games, that's been what he's kind of done. He's attempted three three-pointers in the first 3 games and had no attempts in the first game. Also has made not a single one. So that's something. So I'd argue that anytime he would take a 3, it'd be more or less just him heaving it up at the last second. So don't really expect too much from that. The fact that he hasn't made some last year is a decent sign. But overall, this is a interesting situation because Luke Kornet is hard to replace. I understand that. But when you have the idea that you can have Chris Boucher as your starting center, which to me, all indications are that Neemias Queta is, I don't know how much they trust it anymore, if they like Chris Boucher, Luka Garza more. That's funny because Chris Boucher is really a power forward. That's what he is. So in some aspects, maybe you go with an Anthony Simons, Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, and then Sam Hauser's on the bench and put Boucher at the power forward, and that center position becomes Neemias Queta. I find it intriguing to see what the Celtics end up doing, but either way, the center position has gone from, okay, well, it's going to be Neemias Queta. We don't really know who it's going to be. I don't really trust any of the guys to. I'd argue that the Celtics like 3 different guys to play in that center role. And given you don't have a lockdown guy, I think there's going to be some interesting lineups for the first couple of weeks with both Queta, Chris Boucher, and Luka Garza kind of rotating in there, not in the starting lineups, but rotating through the playing roles and the playing limits. So I'm really curious to kind of see what's going on with that. But overall, we'll kind of look at this, see what's going on, and obviously the preseason game tonight will be a little bit more of a indication into what's kind of happening. But that's what we got for you here today on Celtics Digest. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you hanging along. And as I mentioned, we're going to be having more videos, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and stick around for all your Celtics news throughout the 2025-26 NBA season. Peace out, guys.